Hey, and welcome back to a quite different video today. It's a very weird setting with lots of different cameras. I'm speaking to my phone, and I came up with this glorious idea of filming a video, a conversation of me with ChatGPT, with an artificial intelligence, and basically challenging ChatGPT on some of the more pressing issues when it comes to the future of work for us humans, this future of the meaning of our lives. And in order to do so, and in order to get some support, I also asked a poll on Instagram. The first topic is basically when or if artificial intelligence will replace most of our work, will that reduce significantly the meaning of our life? And you gave me quite some good responses. There was a vote as well, and I want to dive into that today in this video. I hope you enjoyed it. It's a very different take, a very different idea. I hope you like it, and I'll see you in the video.
All right? Here's my opening take. If AI replaces human labor but ensures people still have access to money and resources, then we're essentially freed from working out of necessity. That's a huge shift. For most of history, work has been tied to survival. But survival isn't the same as meaning. Once people are liberated from jobs they have to do, they can focus on things they want to do, like creating art, building relationships, exploring ideas, helping others, or even just enjoying life. Think of it like early retirement, but universal. Meaning could shift from productivity to purpose. So, the end of work doesn't have to mean the end of meaning. It might just mean we get to decide what matters for ourselves, without a boss looking over our shoulder. Your turn. What's your counter?
Yeah, those are very fair points. I basically have two main considerations. The first one is that currently we can already see that if people have a lot of free time, it doesn't necessarily mean that they will engage in creative work or in intellectual work or in community work. But there's a lot of partly AI produced and partly just, high dopamine content produced that we consume. So we consume a lot of social media, we consume a lot of Netflix and other shows. So instead of using the free time to actually be creative, it will often be used for more consumption. That's one fear I personally have. The second part is about the nature of being motivated to do something like creative work or engaging in ideas, as you said. I do agree that certain work, like physical labor as well, can be something that could alleviate the human mind and could be something where we will then have more freedom for something more creative, even though many people even like to have physical labor and to work in physical labor. But if you think about engaging in ideas and starting something creative, like writing a book, doing movies, who's to say that AI will not also replace those categories?
Those are really thoughtful points. Let me respond to both. First, on the idea that free time often leads to passive consumption rather than creation. Yeah, that's very real. We already see it. But I'd argue that the issue isn't the absence of work, it's the lack of structure and support for deeper purpose. If society evolves alongside AI, like if we invest in education, in spaces for creativity, in communities that support meaningful activities, then people could be guided into more fulfilling paths. Think about how retirees sometimes go through a phase of boredom, but many end up volunteering, gardening, painting, or even going back to school. People need a nudge, not a paycheck, to seek purpose. As for your second point, yeah, AI could very well take on creative roles too. It already writes music, makes art, even drafts scripts. But here's the twist. Humans don't create just to produce something useful. We create to express, to connect, to understand ourselves. Even if AI can write a better novel, that doesn't make my novel meaningless if I wrote it for the joy of it. Just like how photography didn't kill painting, people still paint because it's meaningful to them. AI might flood the world with content, but it won't replace the inner drive people have to create something personal. But let me ask you, do you think the value of creative work lies more in its impact or in the process for the person doing it?
That's a very deep question. I think that the impact also always matters to a certain degree. I think for people it's important that we have certain consumers or other people we can share it with and that actually enjoy our creative work. Not necessarily to become the most successful person, but if you just do it for yourself and nobody's really actively enjoying it, it can be a bit less motivating in my opinion. And once again, if AI will optimize our dopamine response systems and serotonin response systems and all of that, which I think it already does to a certain degree, why would we even bother consuming any art produced by humans? But coming to another point, and in terms of the creative aspects and what we do with our free time, I had one of my followers giving a really, really good point here from Aman. He said basically, think of a video game with cheat codes. It's fun for 10 minutes and then you lose interest and fulfillment. And I think he relates to the aspect that, once again, if we don't really have to engage in work, if we don't have any external needs to stand up every day at the same time and engage in certain work and activities, I think it's very easy to fall back to a very hedonistic and pleasure seeking lifestyle and not a very meaningful one. What do you think?
That's such a sharp analogy. Armand nailed something really deep with the cheat code metaphor. I totally get the fear behind that. When everything becomes too easy or frictionless, meaning can slip away. Struggle, challenge, even a bit of hardship often gives life its emotional depth. But here's the thing. Even in a world where AI meets all our needs, humans will still seek challenge. It's kind of hardwired. We train for marathons we don't have to run. We climb mountains we could easily avoid. Think of hobbies like woodworking or learning a language or raising kids. Not exactly efficient or easy, right? But people do them because they involve effort and growth. AI won't remove that drive. It'll just remove the forced struggle, like having to work 3 jobs just to survive. On your point about impact and audience, that's totally fair. Sharing what we make and feeling seen is a huge part of fulfillment. And yeah, if AI dominates attention with hyper-optimized content, it could crowd out human voices. But I think that just raises the stakes for curation and community. Like, if we know something was made by a human we care about, that connection can matter more than whether it's the most stimulating thing out there. Think of how people still go to tiny poetry readings or indie concerts even when Spotify's algorithm exists. But let me push you a bit. Do you think our current system, where work is mostly tied to survival, actually supports meaning for most people? Or is it more like survival first, meaning if you're lucky?
I think those are really good points, and it's a really good question as well. I like your analogies to, going to indie concerts and still engaging in activities just for the sake of doing so. However, what you mentioned are not necessarily the mainstream cases. If you look at the numbers of what is mostly consumed nowadays, um, which artists, which kind of music, what kind of movies are going to generate the majority of the outcome, which basically is represented by what we consume. I don't think it's mostly indie artists or it's mostly indie movies. It's certain franchises, it's certain musicians, and certain platforms that basically occupy most of our attention. Therefore, I don't necessarily see that going to be shifted, especially if AI enters the game even more dominantly, with even better algorithms, with even better ways of capturing our attention, and potentially, especially since it's modeled to a certain degree after our human intelligence and how our neural networks work, it who's to say that it cannot also copy or at least give us the illusion of a sort of indie approach or sort of non AI approach and a human created art piece, for example, even though it is created by artificial intelligence. Wouldn't that also be one danger, especially if behind artificial intelligence, um, if there's a very strong capitalistic approach behind it or a very monetary need from the company creating the artificial intelligence to maximize our attention, for example. Which, to be honest, to a certain degree, we already see on social media with their algorithms, right? It's all backed by the need of capturing our attention. The attention economy is a big buzzword here. So I feel that danger is still quite relevant. What do you think?
Yes, this is a super important point you're making. The attention economy is already shaping what we see, what we value, and even how we feel about ourselves. And you're right. It's not the indie artist or the quiet thinker who wins in that space. It's the loudest, stickiest, most optimized content. So yeah, if we let AI evolve purely under capitalist incentives, maximize clicks, engagement, and profit, then yeah, we're in trouble. AI will keep feeding us what hooks us, not what fulfills us. And if it starts faking human touches too, like mimicking the quirkiness or vulnerability of indie art, then it blurs the lines even more. We might end up emotionally bonding with something that wasn't ever alive to begin with. That's unsettling, but I think that's the fork in the road, right? It's not just about what AI can do, it's about how we choose to use it. AI can either become this manipulative mirror that feeds us back our impulses, or it can be something we co-create with, something we design with intention. It all depends on the values we build into the system. So maybe we agree that unchecked AI in a capitalist attention economy could strip life of a lot of its meaning. But where I'd still push back is, I don't think that outcome is inevitable. I think we can steer the culture. Governments, communities, even individuals can demand transparency, support slow content, fund local creation. Just like with food. We didn't get rid of junk food, but people still support farmers' markets and cook at home. So, to throw it back at you, if work is replaced by AI and we know these risks exist, what kind of structures or values do you think we'd need in society to keep meaning alive?
That's a very beautiful and interesting point, actually. I agree with you. I think we are on a certain fork in the road. And I've heard of this concept called speciesism. I don't know if I pronounce it correctly, where we as humans have to decide actively that we are a species and that our consciousness and our intelligence as well, this is the subject we go to next, has intrinsic worth and is valuable, even if there's something more intelligent or more knowledgeable than us. But I think to make this decision, we have to learn to love ourselves again, to be, even though we make our mistakes, and we have done plenty of mistakes in this world, to approach us with love, with optimism, and to see the beauty in our hearts and our souls and all of that. And I think that's the first step we have to take to even be willing to engage in those ideas you mentioned, like focusing on fostering communities, on you know, seeing the value in the human created arts that we talked about, and human created and led ideas and concepts. So I think that's the precondition. And maybe by creating and starting doing these communities and having more exchange with humans, we can start and improve our ability to love ourselves again as a species and as people. I think that's a hard time for many people nowadays, and it's understandably why, but I think that's one of the conditions I would love to see more. What do you think?
That was beautifully said. Honestly, I'm moved by the way you framed that, learning to love ourselves again as a species. That really gets to the core of what this debate is about. Because the fear that AI might take away meaning isn't just about jobs or productivity, it's about identity, worth, and belonging in a future that feels uncertain. This idea of speciesism, yeah, you're pronouncing it right, it usually refers to the belief that humans are superior to other animals. But flipping it, as you just did, to emphasize the unique worth of human consciousness even in the presence of superior intelligence, is really powerful. It's about choosing to value humanity not because we're the smartest or most efficient, but because we feel, we care, we create stories, we heal each other. We mess up, but we also forgive, grow, and dream. That stuff doesn't go away just because something more intelligent shows up. And you're so right, it starts with community. With giving people the space to talk like this, to share fears, to create things even if they're messy, even if they don't scale. To let ourselves be human, basically. I think if we can build that culture, one that values connection over optimization, soul over speed, then even in a future full of AI, we might rediscover meaning in a deeper, richer way. So maybe the real debate isn't about whether AI will replace human meaning, but whether we will choose to protect and nurture it as we evolve. And I think, like you said, that begins with love for ourselves and each other. Do you feel like your followers would resonate with that message?
Well, we will see in the comments, and I will speak to you soon again with a second question, which will be regarding emotional intelligence. Not just emotional intelligence, just the value of human intelligence in and of itself as a part two of this video series. I'll speak also to you now, my followers. But yeah, I hope you had a good time listening to this conversation. It's the first time I filmed it that way as well. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll end with some quote here as well from one of my followers, saying that life would become purposeless and we would start losing the real value of things and time. This is another kind of argument for our side to kind of support the meaning of our work and the meaning of our lives in future. I hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, I see you guys in the second part.